Hey guys, Saga here, and today's video is going to be the most fun you're going to have before the patch. Alright, so this is the end product of taking a deck that's not very good against monsters and not very good against weather and trying to fix that. Now what I started with was a version of Adam Kaltanis' deck, the version that I made the guide for where I substituted out Cynthia, and from there it changed. Now, what I ended up with has almost nothing to do with weatherproofing. You'll even notice in the video the deck is called Weatherproof Spies, or Waterproof Spies, or something like that. And that was my initial idea, and I got some pretty decent success with that. But I'd like to mix it up, and I tried some other things, and I came up with an alternate solution that I like a lot more, and is probably the most clever deck I've come up with thus far. Alright, let's get into it. Alright, so last time we kind of just jumped into the game. I thought this time let's take a second and look at the cards in the deck. If you guys already watched the last guide, then you should already understand how the basic thinning out structure of the deck works. Basically, you play first lights lead to emissaries, and emissaries lead to everything else. So when you're mulliganing, if you have a choice between mulliganing a first light or, say, an emissary or ambassador, you want to mulligan the ambassador first, because the ambassador needs a body to play the spell onto. Emissary second, and first light last. Also, first light also has the added utility of doing clear skies. Roach for just another easy body on the field, and because he's one less card that you don't need to worry about unless you get him on your last mulligan on your opening hand. Siri for card advantage. Kahir for the double spy combo, just like the last deck. Here's where it starts to get different. In the core of the deck, which is the bronze cards, has been changed dramatically. You have two Arbalists to help you land better Rot Tossers. You have the same operator setup as the last deck. The version I was playing in the guide, I think, ran Cynthia, so that same interaction works there, but this deck is spec'd a little bit better for Cynthia, to get her when you need her. Stefan Skellen puts the card you need on the top of the deck. Rot Tossers, you all know what those do. Alright, so the decoy, if you guys are watching the last guide, is used so that once you operate on Cantarella, that you then get a second Cantarella. You're able to play two, your opponent's able to play one, but because your deck is teched for it with Decoy, you're waiting for them to play their Cantarella so that way you can play that Cantarella back at them, ultimately playing three Cantarellas. And, then because you're playing John Calviet, you'll have the ability to retract those Cantarellas. Alright, now here's the really cool part about the way this deck is built. The big changes were lowering the power score on all of the main minions. So these mostly do reactive things like damage or throw cow carcasses at stuff. And because of that, you're able to play a card like Alzur's Double Cross. Now, there's a second thing that allows Alzur's Double Cross to be possible. You'll notice we freed up a silver slot. We got rid of Dimeridian Bomb, Dimeridium, and we replaced them with Shackles. And the reason we did this is, one, because of a really great comment on Reddit, props to you, good sir, and second, because we didn't really need the value of the bomb. Like, the key to getting Letho back was using the Dimeridian Bomb, and sometimes that would provide additional value. But it was also taking a very important silver slot. And most of the time, you didn't need that extra value. So that's why we made the switch to Shack. It's a bronze card instead of a silver, and it lets us play Alzur's Double Cross. Now, the cool part about Alzur's Double Cross, you'll see in this game, and I'll point it out when it happens, is if you need Cynthia and you don't have her, so say you Stefan Skellen Operator to the top of your deck, and you need your Cynthia in order to draw the cards, that way you can play the Operator onto Cantarella that's in your hand, then you can Alzur's Double Cross her from your deck, because she's the highest non-gold power level in your deck. And the rest of the deck is pretty standard, right? Cantarella is still the most important card. You need to get her. She's what lets your deck work, basically. And before you start playing her, or trying to give your opponent a Cantarella to play, etc., you want to thin out your deck as much as possible. So that way your draws are these core important cards, the golds, the silvers, the things that you really want to have in your hand. Alright, let's look at the game. Alright, so unfortunately I started this video right after the mulligan, but you can see that I have pretty much everything you would want in an opening hand. Everything else that's in the deck is pretty much non-essential cards. So you'll notice here I play Stefan Skellen, and I go for the Double Cross. I go for the Double Cross instead of the Cynthia, because the Double Cross will pull out a buffed up Cynthia.
You crossed the wrong sorceress!
Play Operator next, operate on your Cantarella.
Welcome, Chosen One.
Alright, so now my priority is deck thinning. He doesn't have any particularly juicy target to take down. I consider here whether or not I should just Rot Toss that row, but instead I go for the Emissary instead. I figured he's going to play other row things, and we'll worry about that later.
A shame I had no time.
Got one escapes. Got it?
So cards like Double Cross and any gold card in this deck, they're very valuable because they technically are like playing two cards, right? So you play a gold, you pull out Roach. He's on the board, and now he's no longer in your deck. That's wonderful, but Azuri's Cross does that while buffing something. And it makes what you're drawing completely reliable. If you know your deck, if you know the cards that are in it, you'll always know what card you're getting. Or you'll know what cards are tied so that, you know, it'll be a coin flip.
I shall be your eyes, my lord.
You'll notice that he like passed before we got too deep. This is a very common mistake against this deck. People don't realize that you're going to get that value back, and they don't realize the math on the swings. The way you calculate the math on the swings is you minus the value that's on their board from their score, and then you add that same value to your side, minus 6 from each Cantarella. I know that's complicated, but that's how you do it. This is great because he wants to Radovid Ciri. And Radoviding Ciri, because you play Roach, is no longer enough to get the board and get that clean kill that he wanted. So now he's got to play another card, and it's the same as Ciri working.
Irritate me.
There'll be nothing to pick up when I'm done with you.
I shall be your eyes, my lord.
Alright, so in this position, I'm feeling really comfortable. We've got a Cantarella on the board. It's going to help with swings. We have the ability to draw another card, and
How
Cynthia's
about going to Gwent?
always going to help you, pretty much. I mean, she gives them a 6-drop, she is an 8-drop herself, and you draw a card. Yes, it has a shield, but that shield is so insignificant because you're not trying to remove it. Because if you want to remove it, you'll just use Letho to do that, and Letho doesn't care if you're wearing a shield or not.
I like to improvise.
Spoil intruders.
Okay, so I decided to double cross here. I knew it was going to get me the Rot Tosser. I did the double cross as opposed to just using a Rot Tosser because we wanted to get ahead of our opponent on board, and there's also no more incentive to thin the deck, right? So that's why I didn't even really consider first light. I wanted to Rot Toss. I know I wanted to Rot Toss. That's how I wanted to do it. Right here I killed the Priscilla in order to set up a Rot Tosser in the future. Now the cool thing here is that most people think that their board is safe when they've got low stuff there. But with this deck it's not, and you'll see why in a second.
Nasty wounds, those.
So I'm waiting this entire time, waiting for him to decide, okay, I want to establish my back row. He's Radovid, you know he's going to establish a siege line. I set up my cow carcass. That's unfortunate. He had 2 spells in the bottom of his deck. Alright, so yeah, you set up your cow carcass. And now you eliminate all of the low things that are prohibiting you from getting the big clear. And you basically take his entire row from him. It's a giant power play, and that's one of the most unique and best ways to swing the board with this deck. The best thing about this, too, is that, like, that was only a gain of 12. Or, well, you know, minus the 10 it also cleared off, so 22. But against other decks that play bigger minions as opposed to Radovid players, like, you make giant swings when you do that.
Please wait, Your Excellency. I'm falling behind.
Hail, Kerzer! Private Slate, report on order.
Okay, so he's not Henselt, so I'm not worried about him golding my Letho after I Dim Meridian it. But I am a little bit worried right now about how I'm going to get value out of that Rot Tosser. I was thinking about doing some weird Recall Spies thing.
Salutations. Salutations.
Alright, now we get the Kahir and we finish in the normal way.
What do you want?
There are very few more satisfying finishers than taking your spies back in this game. It always feels good. Alright guys, that's the deck. If you got the cards, I highly recommend you jump on and play this now before the new patch comes and screws it all up. It's not just the change to Kahir or anything like that. The main idea of the deck I think will still work no matter what, but some of the core elements and some of the coolest additions to it, such as the double cross, I don't think are going to function nearly as well in the new patch because Rot Tossers got their health bumped to 6. So that means you can still use her to get Cynthia, which is good, but you won't be able to use it to get Operator when you don't have Operator, so it kind of loses value and maybe loses its slot. If you guys like that and you like my content and you want to help me out, please subscribe. Or if you want to support me, you can do so on Patreon. Oh, one more thing. So I made this movie. When that didn't work, I went to the embassy. I had to find answers, but all I found was more questions. Where are the suites? Why is there so much furniture in an embassy? This ridiculous little short film about PewDiePie and this like ridiculous conspiratorial story. And I really want him to see it because I applied for a job as his production assistant and I'm pretty sure if he just looks at my movie, he'll want to hire me for it. I'm going to leave a link to that and to the John Calviet guide that I mentioned earlier at the end. It would help me so much if you could tweet at him the movie. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. Oh, and this coming Friday, I'm going to be on Twitch. I'm going to be experimenting with new decks, especially if the new patch is live, and I'm going to be going for 4,000. So, I'll see you then.